All right, I think I'm live. Can everybody hear me? Oh, turn this down. Hopefully everybody can hear me. What's up, Jessica? What's up, Daryl? What's up, Joyce? Oh, there's a few people in here already. I apologize. I'm a few minutes late, everybody. I was trying to get these pictures set up so I don't fumble around like I did the last live, but I probably will regardless. But it's still another small step for mankind over this way, you know. Botanical, Right Car, Ricky Russell. Appreciate you all being here. Cool. Okay, I'm checking now. And it's just to make sure that everybody can hear me. Can everybody hear me? I'm still suffering from trauma the time that I did one of these for like an hour and a half and nobody could hear me. So Dan, what's up, Dan? How you doing? You can hear me? Thank you, Joyce. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Well, all right, so check this out. This is going to be a very interesting one. And everybody, I'm going to endeavor this one to be a short one, not the 2 or 3 hour ones like I normally do. I'm going to try to make this one kind of short. There's a metaphysical fair in my town right now, and I want to kind of go to it before it closes down today. Get some of those X39 stem cell patches. They're quite interesting. Anyway, okay, so concerning this, and first I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Jessica, for being here and being my moderator and still helping me get through this whole deal. Jonaside, Summer Breeze, thank you both for being here. I appreciate everybody being here. And I haven't done one of these in a few weeks now, but this will be an interesting one. And we're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. All right. And it's, I don't know. It's just interesting. Something brought this to my attention. And I'm always looking for not just comparisons, but similarities in the contact phenomenon. Okay. And you all know that have been following me for a while. And when I find some, they're significant to me. And I think it's just worthwhile talking about it and explore it a little bit and trying to put some of this tapestry together. Okay. So this is going to be something that connects to actually my personal experiences, which is with these, what I believe to be historian type of time travelers of this alliance things that I've dealt with. And I've termed them the Temporal Integrity Commission. And yes, I sold that from Star Trek Enterprise, but that's what they kind of called that time agency, those part of the Federation from the future there. I think that's kind of a better word than, time cops. I think that's kind of more maybe what they are, but actually I think they're historians. All right. And we're going to take that and kind of cross-reference that with something that really caught my attention on Earth Files. And it was the Earth Files October 22nd, 25, just a few days ago. Okay. And that was concerning tube technology and clones, and also what wind up coming up in their time travel as well. And I saw some correlations that I think are really worth examining. Okay. So we'll start with mine. Now this is okay. Now I'm going to attempt to show these pictures. I've got about 14 of them. So I'm going to try to illustrate the pictures as I talk. I'm going to try to get this done quickly this time so then I can engage everybody in the chat for a little bit and we can just chat, because I know a lot of people have their own experiences, or it may resonate, it may not, but either way, it's all about the people in the chat. It's really cool. So thank you all for being here. Okay, so here goes my first attempt at this. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right, this is I was sweating this, folks, but this is like a launch for me. So we're gonna blast off here, but actually down, I guess, into the rabbit hole. So. Oh, right on. I see your statement, Dan. Shout out to Earth Files. Yeah, I like Earth Files. I like Linda. You know, I mean, a lot of people have problems with her and other journalists, but she just reports what she has. And when I met her in person at the Conscious Life Expo a few years ago, it was really a treat. So anyway, here goes this. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see this. All right. I'm so proud of myself. I've come so far. All right. Anyway, okay, so this goes back to the first UFO that I had seen with my mother. All right. I was 7 years old. And I've talked about this before, so I won't go too detailed with this experience. It is on the channel, but I'll just kind of brush everybody up. I guess there's some people that may never have heard this, so I'll just go over it. Sorry. Anyway, I was with my mother and it was my birthday, my 7th birthday. And I had gotten this figurine for my birthday. It was called a Stretch Armstrong. Actually, I got the Stretch Monster because it looked like this weird octopus creature or whatever. Anyway, but like the first day, I pulled the hell out of that the first day and it started leaking this red stuff. And my mother said it looked like it could be toxic nuclear stuff and we want to take it back and get another one. So we went to this mall, all right, and we see when we're going in between these stores, one's called Ardennes and the other one the Toy City, and it's outside the mall. Like when you would traverse it, it was outside the part of it. The stores would go directly to the outside. You'd walk the hallways, but you'd see outside. You're outside, and we saw this craft. All right, this one here, hovering over this mall, and it was generating this type of a hum sound. And I know what that is more now, okay? But the sound you could hear, and I remember my mom saying, hey, it was maybe it was for across the street were like these car lots. She's like, maybe some sort of an advertisement for the car lots or something. All right, but this thing, what I want to note about it is that unlike the other craft that I've seen been on board, this one looked like what had windows on it. Okay, you see those sections there? And we'll go into a little bit more later about what that actually was. All right. So anyway, so this craft, and it raised up, and it was kind of like it. But your mom had said that, and it suddenly it was like it was just a dot. It kind of like it was further out, and it was just kind of gone. And I remember going, well, I guess it wasn't that. This thing was, quite interesting, and in between those windows, it had this thing that looked like grates on it. All right. So that's this, and this is a ship now. For certain reasons, I will tell you, I think is a time ship. With this alliance or these beings, this alliance I deal with, I think this is a time ship. Let me stop that share, and I'll show you another one real quick. And I said this is going to be more visual than most of them that I do because I think it's really important, everybody. So. Okay, hold on, I have to pull the other one up. I'm sorry. I thought I'd get them all to pull up at once, but I see it's not gonna let me do it that way. Damn, that sucks. Oh well, that's all right. We'll do it this way. That's all right. Not gonna let it stop me. Well, that may not work. Here, we'll try this. Let's try this. No, that's not gonna work either. Okay, I accidentally just blocked the screen. Oh Lord. Okay, so somehow I just managed to completely screw that up. Click the screen icon. Can you all even still see me? Okay, sorry everybody. Oh, that was a disaster. Okay, it's saying your browser's blocked your screen. I pressed something wrong. Click the screen icon, dude. Oh, Lord. Well, okay, I don't know what to do at this point. I'm sorry, everybody. I just messed this up to where I can't see the uh, here, I'm gonna ask real quick. All right, I'm trying to get information. Okay, I'm just gonna continue. That really sucks though, but um funny. No, I don't have a Commodore 64. I've actually got a really nice computer. I won't crack that joke. I've got a nice computer. I don't know how to operate it is the problem. Anyway, okay, back to can everybody still see me at least? Hopefully, seriously, can everybody still see me? Oh, sorry, I'm behind on the chat. I can't see all that. Okay, anyway, sorry. Wow, that sucks, man. That was very important to this live that I show those. Um, man. Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to go forward with it. Oh man, that really sucks. Uh, sorry, I'm asking Jessica right now. Yeah, it's blocked. It's saying that when I try to share something now, it's saying that your browser's blocked your screen. I actually pushed the wrong button down here. And let's see, like for example, I'll pull up the one picture I'm trying to share right now. Okay, it's pulled up. Now when I go back over here, I'll try to share it again just to make sure I'm not messing this up. And it will let me do it. Yeah. Ah. Did that do it? No, it didn't, did it? Oh. Oh, I can't see anything anymore. Okay, oh boy, I've sabotaged this. Oh no. Okay, not gonna panic here. I can't see this anymore. I can't see you all. Oh. Okay, oh. Okay, oh, it's one thing back. All right. All right, you all. I'm just gonna talk about this, all right, and I'll try to get the thing fixed here as I go. I'm sorry, I apologize. I probably lost a bunch of audience right there. Okay, anyway, there was a ship I just showed you, and it was a craft that I had seen with my mother, and it was what I believe was a type of a time ship. And what's interesting about this is that I couldn't remember seeing that ship as important, as cool as it was, and everything. As time went on, I kind of just forgot about it. And one day I was after with all these other experiences happened to me the rest of my life outside of that, I seem to just kind of forget about this one. And one day I was talking to my mother. Actually, I was about 32 at that point, and I went over there because she was going to throw out my Omni magazines that I still had at the house. And when I'm looking over, we're meeting lunch, and I'm looking over one of the layouts. It's got all these UFOs on there, like 2 pages of them. And she walked by. I remember she had a laundry basket, and she looked over. She goes, "Oh, that looks like the one you and I saw." And she pointed to one of them. And when she said that, I said, what? And, and she started saying, you remember that day we were getting that toy and we saw that UFO? And she started looking at me going, you, Mr. Star Trek, with your creepy memory, your Star Trek memory, you can't remember that? And I had to ask several questions to get her to really kind of trigger the memory, So okay, I'm getting these messages right now. Okay, Jessica said it's a StreamYard issue. Okay, your browser has blocked your screen. Click the screen icon in your address bar to allow an address. Now, I don't know where that is, and that's vital. I could mess that up right now. Screen, is that it? Hold on, wait a minute. This might be it. I think I could do it now. Jessica, you may have just rescued me. Let's see now. Let's try now. Boom! Boom! Got it fixed. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Sorry for that. The fact that I got through that was a miracle. I hope I didn't lose everybody. Okay, this picture here. Oh man. Okay, I'm hyped now. Okay. Gosh. All right. This ship looks quite similar. This isn't actually the image I wanted to show as far as what I meant to download, but it looks quite similar. It's this guy Paul Villas had taken a bunch of pictures of a ship that, and the other pictures of it look much more like the one that I had just showed you. Anyway, that's it. Sorry that doesn't look as good. I've just seen other illustrations of that time ship. So, and there's another one I'll show you too. Oh, wow. Okay. Much better. And this one here is actually an illustration from another contactee, and I can't remember exactly the name of the person, but yet it shows you the same configuration that I'm trying to relay. So I'll let you look at that one too. There you go. That's another one. And this one, looks similar. Just again, you've got the windows type of thing and the saucer it was. So, I mean, that's just a similar one. I'm always looking, like I said, for similarities. All right. Now, what's odd is that I couldn't remember how to actually, or I couldn't fully remember this thing to the point of where, I asked my mother a few questions. She triggered the memory. And I was talking to my brother that's closest to me in age. He's a little older, but 12 years older. But I was saying, man, it's almost like I didn't see that thing or something. And he started going, hell yeah, you saw it, man. He said, when I got back home from the pancake house from working, you and mama were talking me to death about it. You definitely saw it, man. So then I got very interested in that, all right? And for the very fact is that, I do have a really good memory. And this was pre to my accident and all that. And I still have that memory now by the grace of God. But the fact that I can remember this clearly, it frustrated me a little. And that only happens when dealing with them, So the more I start thinking on it, I think something must have happened. And it happened quick, whatever it was, And something even more odd is that I had dealt with this lady named White Dove. She's older and she was a medium and psychic where I lived. I've mentioned her before. And one way or another, I was going to meet that lady because she started doing that's back in the days where you could post personals in the newspaper. And she was doing a research book or a group over this book, the Uranta. And also she had some other eyes up as somebody that was seeing and giving readings. So I was going to meet her one way or the other. All right. And one day she had told me, she said, that first ship that you saw with the parent, your friend on board that craft gave you something. And she says that, and I say, I've never seen a craft with a parent. And at that time, because it still had eluded me at that time, she looks at me, she goes, oh, I think you definitely have. And it was about you. They weren't just on some scout mission like you think. It was about you. And then and it was just odd. I'm like, thinking whatever. But then, a year or two later, my mother winds up saying that where we're talking that day while I'm over there. So anyway, that's just very, very significant. Okay. So what I did, okay, is that had bothered me enough, and I couldn't seem to recall all the memories despite trying the meditation and trying all that stuff. So what I decided to do was I got a regression done for it. All right. And this was years and years later, I decided to get this regression done because I couldn't fully remember everything. And I wanted to get really just a really good view of the craft so that I could get an illustration of it made. All right. That was my main goal there. And when I do this regression, all right, I find that I am standing here in this place here. All right. Now we'll just show you this. Sorry, I'm almost done with some of the sharing so I can talk straight, but I think it's important. All right. When I'm here, okay, the regression, I just wanted to see the ship from the outside so I could get an illustration of it. And all my artwork is done by Casara. Gosh, it's been like 2011 or 12 now. Anyway, but everything here, but this was a mall. And you see my mother and I are standing down there. So I could see her and I, but that's the only thing was different was that's actually a mall where we were standing, not a neighborhood. But anyway, she still did a good job. But we're standing down there, okay? And I can see these individuals. These three individuals are there. And at first, this is like a metal wall, okay? And you've got the guy standing up here, and he's communicating with me telepathically. He said his name was Alex with 2 L's. I'm seeing in my mind AL''LEX. So he said his name was. And he's telling me things that are like scientific things and things about kind of like, caring and about the planet and things that are very inspirational. And he had in his hand, that you don't see here, but it looked like 3 strips of mica in his hand. And sitting down below him are these 2 gentlemen, all right? And they're like, I guess their jobs is whatever they're sitting there, but they all have these tight blue outfits on, and they got these boxes with these metal wires that come. Actually, the wires were a little higher than even what she has illustrated there, but they were coming up from the top of the boxes to the back. And those chairs were even designed so that they would sit and not interfere with those boxes. All right. And what I want to bring up about this is that these 2 individuals sitting there looked a lot like this cat, Alex, but not exactly. They weren't identical twins. They look more almost fraternal, all 3 of them. And they never said anything, but he did. And on a joking side, everybody, these outfits they got on, man, the mugs was tight. I mean, it was tight like a Spider-Man outfit or a Christopher Reeve Superman outfit, and I've always cracked on Star Trek: The Next Generation. The first 2 or 3 seasons, they had these uniforms that were so tight and so uncomfortable looking. And I would say, man, if I was an engineer, I would never be wanting to crawling around in a Jeffrey tube and that type of an outfit. Talking about getting a low sperm count. Anyway, all right. So point being, I bring this up too, and some of y'all know, I had to actually, before I pieced this together, that this individual here, Alex, is somebody I had met before, okay? And it wasn't in this situation, but I hadn't put that together, and I hadn't put together that I had encountered that some of these Nordic type of beings. But Alex, I say, was about maybe just about my height now, maybe a little taller, 6'1", maybe. Okay, and I'm, right around in there. So he wasn't like some tall cat or nothing. And he had a same as you'll see in another picture. This is type of what do you call that? A shag, like a shag. That was like early 80s, like late 70s, and that shag was in. Like, and it looked like kind of like I'd say how David Hasselhoff wore his hair in the second season of Knight Rider. Anyway, point being, all right. So, but that's just what these individuals were, and I believe that what this here and what about this screen when he moved his hand and I could see through. Okay, I could see what would almost be down to my feet technically. All right, it was like completely almost like holographic. I could see the tower and the city water tower and all that stuff. And I believe that's one of the windows you saw in that craft on the outside. All right. So that's someone to bring up. And I'll try to connect this with something else real quick that will just give you guys a real feeling for what I'm saying here. There it is. God, I'm getting better. Got helped out. In fact, I have so much the ability to see these just changed everything. So I hope I didn't lose everybody because it would have been boring if you couldn't have seen it. It's just me talking and I've got videos doing that. That's kind of boring, you know. All right. Okay. So this situation happens. Okay. A few years late, about a year later or so. Okay. I had encountered this individual. And I've done another live and I've talked about the charters. Okay. And this individual approached me. My mother was an antique collector. All right. And my father would be, he was a traveling trainer of this Primrose Company thing. So he'd be gone sometimes. I would be with her and she'd be junking, what she called it, when she was out collecting antiques and stuff. We went to the store, and at the store was it it was like antiques on one side, and on the other side was like books and like little cool water fountain and some other stuff. And this water like one of those office deals, like a waterfall thing, decoration. And inside of it, it had these rocks. And one of these rocks looked just like this rock from this TV show I would run home and watch on Nickelodeon that came on right after You Can't Do That on television, called Under the Mountain. It was out of New Zealand, and the dude was called Mr. Jones. He came from another galaxy. He was actually a light being that was masquerading as a human, chasing these mud creatures, extraterrestrials called the Wilberforce, that would turn worlds into mud. And they had thought they defeated him, and he came here, but he brought these rocks, these two stones, and they were telepathic, and they were also weapons from his civilization. And he needed twins to use them. And this stone that I saw in this water bin looked just like one of those stones. And so I kind of wanted it, but I was looking at it, and this gentleman comes out from the back. So I thought he worked there at the time. But now looking at it now, I think maybe he didn't work there, but people knew him that worked there, obviously very well. And he comes out, he walks up to me, and he says, "Young man, do you think igneous rocks are metamorphic by nature?" And I mean, I'm in no danger. I'm in eyesight of my mother, so it's not like I'm gonna get kidnapped or something, you know. And I said, yeah, but it takes too long. It needs to be like Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby, immediate metamorphic. And he started laughing, saying it doesn't work like that. And he started just talking a bunch of science stuff to me. And I mentioned before, who comes up to a 7-year-old kid and does that? Unless you know something about them. At that time, I was actually trying to force metamorphic rocks by putting them in ice and then boiling them. I was trying everything to get to transform like sandstone and get to crystal and things of that nature. So, I mean, that's just say something. So I called him a charter. All right. Now this individual winds up giving me that stone, and he gives me a card. He says he gets it out of there. He said, "I'm gonna give you that stone, but I want you to do something. I want you to fill this out and join." And he gives me a card to what is the Mineral and Gem Society to my state. He's like, "It's free." And we leave. He's like, "That's a very special stone. You should put it under your pillow and dream with it." I remember getting outside and my mother saying, look at me going, God, that white man was very taken with you. And I was like, shoot, I don't care. I got this rock. That's kind of where I was at anyway. So point being, this individual is the same individual that you saw in that craft. He looked a little different with the hair was maybe a little more kempt, not quite as shaggy, but same cat, okay, that was in that other picture. So that's what I call one of the charters. And the charters coming around, this is to my, okay, when I first came forward, I started talking about this a lot, and I got so many emails about this, is that the charters seem to come around about every 7 years for those of us that are lifetime contactees. And I think that's there just to make contact with us in terms of in some type of way. Okay, and think about how many times that somebody's come out of a crowd and said something heavy to you and then they just disappear. Okay, and this is a situation like that. All right, and at no point did I say, "Hey, are you an extraterrestrial or whatever?" I mean, it wasn't like that, but it was a very, very interesting encounter. All right, and this is that rock right here. It's very odd because under ultraviolet light, it has these specks in it. The guy that runs that room at actually the Gem and Mineral Society show, he asked me, so where'd you get that? He goes, a rock stone, a river stone like that shouldn't glow at all. I was like, man, never mind all that. I don't even want to go into it. But anyway, so that's something that I wanted to bring up about this Temporal Integrity Commission. All right. I do have an outline here, and I'm gonna try to stick to this so I don't lose everybody or go for too long. All right. Okay. So something else I want to kind of tie together with this gentleman, with Alex and everything, it gave me a real interest in what's known as the and often I've said his name wrong before, so I don't want to get it too wrong, but George Adamski. He let's see, and I will actually show you why for a couple of reasons. All right. This gentleman right here. George Adamski, or I think it's Adamski, yeah, and the Venetians, okay? And I'll just let you look at that for a second real quick. And two things that gave me a great interest in him, and I've got one other picture, is that craft looks similar to one that I'd seen when I was about 18, 19, one that I was aboard. And what is the most interesting that's kind of similar is the bottom, those three discs on the bottom. And I'll show you later that craft that I was aboard. But that one had four underneath it, and the bulbs were a little bigger than those ones because I think there's something slightly different. All right, but the other thing that interests me is that his pictures of the Venetians and his descriptions of them were these Caucasian dudes with these real tight blue suits. Let me see here if I can find that real quick for you. But that was another thing that really that I found very, very interesting. Let's see. Let's try this one. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Well, I might not see. I got that one, but for whatever reason, it didn't pull up with the others, so I'm not gonna mess with it. But well, I'll say this: I had two of them that have George Adamski contact pictures, but this one will work just fine, though. The only thing that's different about the picture I'm about to show you here is that the other ones, he's always got them in these blue suits. All right. And they're not exactly like the ones that the integrity officers or whatever it had on that I saw, but it's still somewhat similar. That's one of his pictures there. Every other picture where he shows these individuals, they have blue suits on. The other picture I have, it has blue suits, but I want to move all the other pictures to try to show that one. But normally they have on these blue suits. They're not exactly like the ones from the individuals that I dealt with. Okay, they had these, they had the boxes on them. Okay, but everything else was just similar. And look, I'm not an expert in like Caucasian genetics and hair color. All right, but this individual, Alex, if he was, because his hair was kind of like a silver pepper type color, even maybe a little less, kind of silver. So I'm like, man, if he was younger, would he be one of the blondes or something like that? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, just for these reasons, the ship configuration that George had shown, along with these Caucasian beings in the blue suits, just caught my attention. Okay. So cool. All right, leave that there. All right, now hopefully, I think now I'm gonna leave that there. All right, and I apologize, everybody. That took a lot longer than I thought. But now we're gonna go over the second part of this that I think is very important and try to tie this together. And I'll get with everybody in chat. The Earth Files episode from 10/12 to 25, a few days ago. Excuse me. All right. The things that caught my attention. Number one, okay, is that there was an individual. She started reading off people's responses to the show that she had done on 10/15, and on there she had talked about that tube technology, or the preservation tubes as they're being called now. They've also been called uh, 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 soul transfer technology also. But in this deal, there was an individual that had wrote in that she showed, it went by Converse 2736, and he talked about being one of the people that had seen during the experience these preservation tubes and beings floating in there that had like a blue light on them and some type of a blue liquid. And I just found that somewhat interesting there. Like I said, there again, I'm always looking for similarities. All right. And when he had said that, it made me think of something that I have seen. All right. And it's here we go. And Jessica, I think you're gonna like this one because it's gonna take me down the hole on this one. But okay, it reminded me of this. All right. This is a ship, and I'll show you the ship here in a second, but this is a craft. This is the one that was the first missing time I had when I was 18. All right. And when I got levitated into this craft and through the door, I was in this room. All right. And this room, as I've mentioned before, I've called it an anti-gravity room, but I really don't know what it was, but I can tell you it was much bigger than is perceived here. That room was huge. That room was as big as the craft I was seeing in the sky. All right. And what kind of struck me interesting is that this individual Converse was talking about that blue liquid. See, I saw there's this blue beam there that was going with these like lines, these like cords that's going to this organic wall. And there's this box on the side. And Jessica, I know you like the black boxes, all right? And this was big, okay? And this thing was sitting, I think you would call it like a 90-degree angle. And when I would look up at this thing, I would get dizzy. I mean, it made me, that's when all that temporal aphasia started. And it looked like it had these things were like these carbon tubes going out of it into that wall. As a matter of fact, that the way it's sitting up like that, they reminded me of like the rims of a Cadillac, the spokes. It kind of reminded me of that, but they were big. Okay. Anyway, there's this blue beam back there. All right. And I'm inquisitive. And in this environment, although I'm not seeing any beings, I can feel presence, but I'm getting information. And now I'm pretty sure at this point that it comes from the craft. The craft is highly sentient and much older on the soul level than I think any of us give credit for as a space organism. I've talked about that before. Okay, anyway, what I was picking up was this was composed of uranium, plutonium, magnesium, copper, and plasma. Okay. And when I started trying to look that up scientifically, look, folks, I'm not a chemist, all right. But it brought me to something that is called when dealing with plutonium, Pu3, which is actually decayed silvery plutonium that is activated by water. Okay. And when dealing with uranium, okay, dealing with uranium, there was a gentleman by the name of Albert Bender. And I've got a picture of him too. He wrote a book called Flying Saucers and the Three Men. He's initially the first person that ever reported the Men in Black. Okay. And he had said the first Men in Black came to visit him because they told him that you discovered something vital about the UFO flap that you are going through. The UFO phenomenon that's intensifying right now. And it has something to do that they were mining something from our sea and getting something from our sea, some of these civilizations. I honestly believe it was uranium. If you look up uranium and the uranium percentage that is in seawater, it's quite interesting. And this blue beam, before I stop sharing this takes back to something else, okay? I always wondered about the stasis beams. When I was taken into that craft, all right, the beam was golden, a gold color. But before I got like in there, sucked in there, it turned like a blue color. And I've always wondered, because I've heard that a lot of times the disinfectant colors are often purple, ultraviolet, that you go through when you go the light before you go into the craft so you don't infect anyone. Kind of like the Worlds of the War, or excuse me, the War of the Worlds. How you know what got them? It was the bacteria that is present here on Earth. We've got so many, and stuff like that. And I even did a deal where I made 2 videos that were about stasis fields. And I wanted to know, because I had heard things years ago at the African American bookstore when I was talking to other contactees, that a lot of us that are melanin dominant don't go through the disinfectant process. So we don't go through a purple light. And I just wanted to see, so I asked a bunch of contactees what type of color light took them in. I just wanted to see. But regardless, I think maybe the uranium and the plutonium factor, which shocked me to get that in my mind, that Pu3 might have a little bit to do with our disinfectant situation when we're going to that craft. And something else I want to say about this room before I stop sharing this, all right, is that this room was huge. It was as big as what I saw in the sky, technically. And I also think it is a place where the craft is alive, and I think it can grow another craft in there. And other civilizations can assist in that growth. That's what I believe that is right there. So I kind of wind up calling it almost like a cargo bay. It seemed like that. All right. Anyway, and towards the black box, again, I'm getting that's got to do with inertial dampener and also connecting life energy as well. And I think that's something in most of these. There's boxes in a lot of these craft I've been aboard. Anyway, real quick, I will show you a picture of Bender if I've got it here. Here we go. All right, bear with me, everybody. I think I'm getting faster. One small step for mankind, right? There it is. Here you go, everybody. Al Bender, right there. That book it's an older one, but he's the first one. And the three men, he's talking about the men in black, the first ones that came to investigate him or to kind of intimidate him, tell him to stop talking. But most of what we hear about the men in black, it all started with him. And that's when that dealt with, said they were mining something out of the sea that he had discovered what it was. He didn't say what it was, but I think it was probably uranium. That's my thought. And if you look up when uranium was actually found in seawater, it was around the time that this was going on, 60 something. So anyway, that's just food for thought on that. All right. So now going from there further into this episode of Linda Moulton Howe. All right. The next thing that really caught my attention, and the reason why I wanted to do this live, I'm sorry it took me so long to get here, folks, but it was another account that she had read from a gentleman named Jared. And Jared claimed to be, check it out, Jessica, remote viewer. And he said that he got into some sort of a heavy remote viewing where he was involved with the universe, and he finds himself in a feline body floating in a vat of liquid. And he's very descriptive on this feline body, and that they have a short lifespan of about 30 years because they are historians. He says there are historians that deal with looking at the time, at the past especially, and that's all they do. And I find that fascinating because that takes me into the realm of some of these beings I've dealt with that I think cannot just non-humans that cannot just project false environments through the optical nerves to you consciously, but they also, I think, can stop time. Not permanent without technology, but I mean, they can do something that makes it to where, like, I think you all can understand when I say that we've had moments in time where it's like it lasts for 1 second that lasts like a million years or something. You know what I mean? I think they have that ability to do that. And it's something I think they can do, not just consciously, but also with the magnetic fields of their bodies too, and the magnetic containment of their energy fields. I believe that's also a part of it as well. I don't know if it's a defense mechanism, if it's an automatic product of getting a faster vibration, yada, yada. I can't describe all that, but I'm pretty sure some of them can momentarily suspend time. It just takes us to another level when you start dealings with beings from not just different densities, but different dimensions, different universes, yada, 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 different galaxies, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? Anyway, so, sorry. Okay. And specifically for me, the beings that I encountered that I think were able to kind of deal with time came out of some of those eggs in one of those rooms on board that one craft. All right, that I just showed you. And at the point, this is about over because I was about to pass out. And one locked here, one here. And I remember saying, like, oh, they're like adjusting my time field or something like that. And they're the ones that transferred me to that like hyperbaric chamber where I was sent back. Okay, so they had the ability to do that also. And I felt like they were kind of suspending time and changing my time field. It was their natural ability. Can I prove it? No. But then these were non-corporeal officers. I've described what it's really like to be on a multidimensional craft. That was one. Anyway, sorry. Okay. Going further. This individual, Jared. Okay, he when he said that, it really made me think about this time ship. I'm not going to go through showing you again, but the time ship. And I was just in one compartment with Alex and these three weird cats. All right. And I don't know who was in the other windows of that craft. I think it was a ship of historians. Some of them could have been felines. And it's so weird because now we hear things so much, oh, felines, it must mean Lyra, this and that. But that gentleman was saying that it was a species that was forced to do cloning to do that job. This wasn't some benevolent situation there, which I think is different than what I'm seeing here. But what I want to bring to your attention is just, okay, what is it about these individuals? I encountered these. I mean, I think I don't want to call those charters. I call that integrity commission, those cats in the blue. Why did they look clone-like? Alex, I mean, the others weren't like, I didn't sense they were like zombies or anything, or even soulless for that matter. I don't know, but they weren't as communicative as him. Was it just because they were doing their work? Were they actually genetically related because of natural reasons, or was it something else? Is it a cloning type of a deal they're doing? And I mentioned before, those individuals and a lot of those charters feel like, to me, people from the future. Okay. And what happens before we change our container into something different, like high energy plasma or whatever? What happens to us as a species? You know, and is it something was brought up to me once I did at the conference. I showed that picture. An individual came up to me later. What was the cat's name? Jerry, I think was his name. And he said, you know, it's possible that maybe they're also doing the organ rejuvenation and regeneration thing, and they're aiding each other in that way, that their society is built on that and cloning in that type of a way. He could be right. I never thought about it. You know what I mean? The Borg do that, don't they? So it's just food for thought on that. I don't know. But regardless, it makes me think about these different historians, these different factions that deal with the time shift, with the time technology and with the timelines. And I've tried to, and I try to keep things in retrospect. I know there's certain stories like the one from Andrew Basago, which I think is a good one, about Jessica Rebs, Project Pegasus. And it's things like that. And I want, and that's an interesting story there. His whole thing about, he's the first one that talked about the Montauk chair I ever heard about, or talked about jump rooms, AKA quantum synthetic environments. That came from Andrew Basago. And it went further from there. All right. And it exploded after that. But now, when dealing with my friend Jessica here, who done all those blind targets for me, we just did our 84th remote viewing show a couple of days ago. So she's got all that on her channel, but it's also on mine. If you go to the interview or the playlist, I've got ones that's remote viewing with Jessica Jones. All 84 we've done are on there. So maybe check that out if you get a chance. I'm real proud of that work. It's been good work. Anyway, regarding when I gave her the target for the interior of Cydonia on Mars, she was seeing this. One of the things she was seeing down there was this, like, it was like a connected situation, these different places that were connected, but it was like this a jump room almost connected to other destinations and other jump rooms. And it very much sounded to me like where the initial beginning of the jump room like design and back engineered here on Earth started. That's what that sounds like to me, because whatever she was looking at was old. It's not newer stuff. It's not human stuff. It's old. It was ancient, but it's been fired back up. So that's what I believe. All right. And I've talked to another contactee, one of them being my brother, who's been in an environment similar like that, where you walk up, there's a bubble there. You could probably walk through like a Stargate of some type, and you can see other different places, different in this room, different bubbles that have different exit points, So I think that's something really to kind of looking at in retro. You know what I mean? Anyway, okay, sorry, I'm trying to get down through here. Okay, when going through the cloning, all right, the cloning, you've got what we know scientifically now. You've got the three different types, which is therapeutic, reproductive, and gene cloning. And that somatic cell nuclear transfer was like the most advanced kind of cloning that we had on the market they were showing. And now they're taking that further with those different stem cells and things that are actually speeding up that deal to where you have almost immediately assembling DNA. So I think that's fascinating with dealing with the whole cloning process. And something I wanted to bring up concerning that, all right? And this is just a little something else. There was a gentleman that went by the name of John Gee. Okay, and it's so interesting because now he is all but it disappeared, and the images I'm going to show you, I can't find them anymore. They're gone, but they've been in my database for the last 15 years or so. All right, but I'm gonna, oh, sorry, I'm gonna show this to you real quick. All right, here's one. Okay, John Gee, and I thought maybe he had written a book, but he didn't. It was maybe he was on. I can't remember, but there were these. He had several sketches he had done of his encounters, and I was very much interested in what he was saying for two reasons. One, he said that all the technology that he encountered was organic craft, organic things, and also his name, John Gee, and he's supposed to be from New Zealand. And that made me think of the Under the Mountain author whose name was Maurice Gee. I couldn't find any relation, but Maurice Gee had written that Under the Mountain stuff. But I couldn't find any relation, but that just caught my attention. This here was something that he said was a component of the actually crew members, which were almost fetus like on board one of these craft. All right. And you can see that there's even like a crawl space there at the top, but you can see there's a mask. It's very, very fascinating. But that is supposed to be a pilot and also partial power source for this craft. And I got the impression that he's saying it's also an incubator of a type. All right. So all of his schematics are very interesting to me. At the bottom there, nano-organic and pneumatic fluid provides immobile stasis. Little things like that. And I've got some other pictures from him that I'll show you too. I think it's very worth it. Worth and again, like I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I'm always looking for similarities. Here we go. Now this is what he says is the craft he was aboard. And I found it very interesting. Okay. One is what you see are he's got scalar spiral spear coils in a gyroscope. He's got one more image that I'll show you too. Okay, that reminds of something I've shown you before, which is a gyroscopic engine or brain that I've been on board a craft when I was younger. All right, the gyroscopic one. So that caught my attention. Number two is you see at the top here how you got the two seats. That looks incredibly to me like what's called the inflationary uh, spacecraft from James Ring and not James Ring. I'm sorry, Ralph Ring. Sorry, Ralph Ring and Otis Carr. They have one, and there's actually I'll try to post that on Facebook when I get done with this evening. It's actually the ship that what they got. They have a patent for it, and he said it was like making them lose time and stuff like that, so they didn't use it anymore. Carr said he'd never get in it again or something like that. Anyway, so just looking at just that, and it's just a very interesting diagram he's got there. He's got tachyon projectors. That's fascinating. Faster than light projectors. Okay, particle acceleration. All very interesting. Catches my attention too. Crystal spears spinning with water inside a magnet. Okay, so anyway, that's one of the craft he's been on board. And what you saw as that other entity, that embryo thing, I believe, was also involved in this craft as well. Here, one more. Again, this is another picture from John Gee. Oh. Let's see. Here we go. John Gee. Okay, this caught my attention too. The reason being, it's not exactly the same, okay, but it has some characteristics in common with what I've seen. One being that it's somewhat organic. Number two, it's got that gyroscopic type of configuration, including something being suspended in the middle. All right. Um, anyway, I'll let you check that out. But that I think is very noteworthy. Those are the three sketches that he had that I can no longer find on the internet and anything about him anymore. I mean, I was looking yesterday and today, but it sure wasn't easy. So I don't know. But very interesting when dealing with other experiencer testimony, you know, and just for a little bit of sorry, I've got people came, so it might be getting kind of loud. I apologize. Um, okay, so you just saw the John Gee thing, and of course, why it caught my attention is due to this. And this is something I won't spend any time hardly at all on because I've shown it to everyone before. But this is something I've shown you that I experienced when one experience that I'd had before my missing time, but it was still adult onset. I was about 17, and I woke up on board, standing by this thing, and this, has similarities to what John Gee had. One is that this is in the center. There is that organic component, and I mentioned before that took me into the honeycomb conjecture. Why do honeybees make hexagon to store their energy? All right, and that was generating that light going up that they called and AGLE, angelic golden liquid energy, some sort of polarized light. And when you start dealing with this type of light, there materials coming from another dimension or another universe into that one. That's one of the contraptions or one of the configurations that can do it. And if you notice, when you really start looking into Suge Knight and C60, C60 looks quite similar. And I mentioned, excuse me, everybody. I mentioned the other day on Jessica's show that there's a company called Hexcel, Hexcel, and they have something called a honeycomb composite that is actually used to put inside of airplanes to help against lightning resistance. All right. So anyway, just things like that. I'm always looking and paying attention and trying to see things that are similar. And again, this was really a big place. I was staying at the bottom and there were people at that first level up there. Those are decks touching that living light, going to that rail and touching the light. And they look like I can see through them. They're like transparent. Okay. So I want to really go up there and get a better look. Next thing I'm sucked up there. And I mentioned before, one of the people I saw up there was Susan Manwich. She's the one touching the light. There was other people in the group of people. Another one was the first person that got me to ever do an interview, Bill Spicer. He wrote a book with Margie Kay called Fast Movers. He has a technique that's called the quantum observation technique that you use off buildings using polarized glasses. It's quite interesting, actually. He's quite intelligent. But I saw him in that group, and he really tripped on this because he tripped out on the black. When he saw this illustration, he had a memory of it. He remembers the black box. And again, that light, you've got that light in it, that life energy. Okay, that living light going up to that box, and that box is collecting that life energy, but it also disseminates it around the craft as an anti or gravity modification field. That's one of the things that box does. I think that's why they were calling it an inertial damper. Okay. Anyway, point being, that's why I took an interest in John Gee's stuff, is the similarities between what he represented there and this. No, it's not exact, everybody, but just looking for the similarities. Okay. Don't worry, I'm almost done, folks. It's already gone way longer than I thought. That's all right, though. Anyway, getting with his cloning, G had talked about cloning going on board that organic craft, and also in that chamber there, and that there was a clone thing going on with beings that almost existed like similar to fetus. I don't, so it's just very fascinating information. All right. Um, that just takes us into this tube technology. All right. And the fact that I myself there's a reason why I'm into time technology, is that I've seen my own doppelganger when I was younger. I was, again, all the stuff happening when I was like 7, I see somebody standing on a bridge. It looked like by where I lived, it looked like one of my siblings, but it's not. But it looks like me when I got older, like years later. And it really tripped me out, but it gave me an obsession with time control technology. And I've checked into some of these things, the claims of some of these programs. There's so many, but I've not been involved with any of those. These beings that I've dealt with are not any of those regimes either. I've tried to place it, but it's not. We're dealing with so many different factions coming here from different galaxies, different timelines, different dimensions, different universes, that it's like all bets are off, See, okay, I think I got everything in terms. Oh, concerning this this tube technology. All right. Um, I've heard for years people making accounts of actually being on board craft where they're seeing things that appears to be like some type of an arc, and you've got just multiple beings that are on board just in these these stasis pods, just rows of them, like huge, like almost it's a Noah's Ark type of a situation. I mean, I've heard that several different ways from many different contactees. Let's see. Oh, I had other pictures of this. This is the only one I'm going to show of that, so I don't have to waste any more time on that. But we've seen, many people have reported that, or seeing something similar to being like aboard the Ark. And often I've heard like some of the more interesting ones are in the tubes are not just humanoid, quote unquote Adam Cadmon. You've got others, octopus beings, feline beings. And when dealing with the feline being, something else I meant to bring up, when dealing with the feline being that Jared on the Earth Files said that he felt like he turned into in this vat, it reminded me of another thing Jessica had done, another thing she remote viewed, which was the anomalous containment field, a blind target I'd given her. And she kept feeling like she was a feline floating in one of those vats or underneath contained like that. So, I mean, it's coming up again and again. That data's there. Thought you'd find that interesting. And that's one. And something that Linda Moulton Howe talked about a lot. She calls it in the book, Harvesting Strange Harvest 2, I think it is. She talks about what they call this resurrection technology. I've been exposed to something similar, I think, on a different level. Okay, what has to do with creating how I actually got a doppelganger or a double. Okay, and why I was that individual was able to actually interfere with my timeline just a bit. But anyway, point being that just I think it goes deep and far and beyond what we think. But when Jessica had talked about that, it was being in a containment pod type of thing, similar to what this individual Jared had said he had see himself leaving another life as. So again, this is just putting, kind of putting things together and going through here. Man, I think I've done it. I've done it. Oh, okay. That was all that stuff. Okay, one other thing interesting before I start going into the chat here. I do earthbound spirit crosses, and I did probably the most interesting one that I've had yet. One of the earthbounds or sorry, it wasn't earthbound, but it was attached. One of the spirits, bound spirit, well, it was earthbound, technically, it was earthbound. Earthbound spirits attached to the client was it was an extraterrestrial. Not just extraterrestrial, it claimed to be a type of a mantid that we're not familiar with. There's apparently bunches of them. And the spirit said that it was here on a mission and they got attacked and crashed, and their entire crew died. Like two of them, like I think we're 6 of them or something like that, and like 3 of them didn't. 2 of them, this one and another one survived, and the others died on impact. But then humans came and tortured them right after that, and maybe it was 3 remained. I can't remember, but they tortured the other ones. Died during the torture. And that's what this spirit was reporting, and it couldn't leave because of that. And that's what got it trapped here. And it was so unique because one is, how do you go about crossing an extraterrestrial? So I asked it, you know, what is your spirit? What is your spirituality like? What do you believe in? And it started saying, you know, not much different than you, but we're way more organized than you. That we believe in the source. We believe in the source just like you do, but we're organized. We're not all chaotic with the religions and the stuff you are down here. We're very unified. And in that way, it was describing unified like the way an insect colony would be spiritually. It was fascinating. And, you know, I got this thing to cross over. It was really a trip. It was just different. It's not, you know, you can't make some of that stuff up. I can tell you successfully I've crossed over probably over 600 earthbounds now, out of several hundred people. But that's one of the most unique ones I've done. And it wasn't really a hard one. It was just different. You know what I mean? Unexpected. Anyway, sorry. So I'll go to the chat now, check everybody out before I get out of here. But I want to try to touch base with everybody. I'm sorry, folks, that went way longer than I thought. And I'll go up a little bit so I can just see what everybody's saying. I love your brain food. Thank you. So don't worry that I just go on too long, you know. Dan at 329. Oh gosh, I thought I went way back further than that. That's a good question. Do clones have souls or just part of a soul? Are we descended from clones after the big reset? So many questions. So check it out, Dan. I can say this. You know, I did a regression with the individual that I met at the Journey to Truth conference. And during this, they had been having night terrors, and it's on my channel underneath it might be negative beings. I'm not sure, to be honest. But anyway, it's called the soul fracturing regression. And what this individual had was they were having problems with night terrors. They were like waking up sweating and stuff. And I'm like the wife's having to wake them up constantly, and they couldn't. It was bizarre. But what it turns out it is, okay, is that there was a problem because they were getting abducted, okay, and they got genetic samples taken by artificial intelligence while there are these individual doctors looking at them through these windows. And I could tell by what was being said that the doctors were a screen memory, okay? And what really winds up happening is that you've got these doctors who are really several different beings from different dimensions. You had an eagle type looking being. He described as looking almost like a bald eagle type of raptor. Okay, very tall. You had a dog being a dog person, dogman, but it was described as looking more like a German shepherd with the ears kind of halfway up. It was very large. Another one was an octopus being that was a little smaller than us in size, but the face with the tentacles. And I think the other one was it a Nordic, or I think it was Nordic maybe, but anyway, no, it was, gosh, sorry, I can't remember now. Anyway, point thing is that what they were doing after they'd taken the genetic samples, they were making clones of him in their dimensions. All right. And then they started messing with his spirit in terms of his energy body, his dream body. they bilocate us during these experiences. And that's what happened to me over that mall. I was bilocated right there. So although my physical body was still down there and still running, but the energy body and the dream body, aka, was manifested there by them. Okay, so this individual's going through that, but what they start doing is they start trying to see how far and how long they can get his energy body away from his energy dream body, away from his physical body before self-preservation snaps it back. And the feeling of being separated like that is what was giving him night terrors. Okay. Now, that to me, and what they were trying to do was fracture his soul, his spirit. Spirit is a better word for this. Fracture his spirit so that they could put little pieces in the hybrids, clones in the different dimensions. But they weren't able to do it. Okay. And that, of course, gave him some trauma too. And I'm going to say this to end this part of the story, Dan, is that, to me, that sounds just horrific. Negative, man. Negative, I thought. And when I asked him at the very end of the regression before I emerged, I say, so what do you think about this encounter? Would you gauge this is a negative encounter? And he was like, I remember looking on his face, oh, no. No. They said, no. They're doing it because they're trying to, it's so fascinating. They're trying to learn how to love like we love, the degree we're capable of it. So these species, they're able to love, but it's like the way our animals on our planet love. It's love, but it's not the same. It's not the intensity that we have. And another thing is, and also they want to know, why is it that when we die, we go directly back to God, directly back to source, and they don't? They go through these other cycles and things. And I thought that was fascinating. And look, y'all, I can't make up the rules, okay? It is what it is. I have to just go with what the information, the data that I get, but that right there made me realize, like, golly, we're much greater than we think. Humanity's not the weak peons that we think. There's something great about us, especially when it comes to the eternal spirit, the eternal soul. One more thing, I had it was past life regression, actually, but afterwards I went through a deal and I wound up having, not attached to the client, but in the room were these, four beings that said they were from basically the fifth mansion world, or the fifth density, the fifth frequency. And they were in there. They weren't connected to the client, but they said they were just observing. They called themselves like a scout team. And they were saying, we've watched you before, and you've talked about the soul. And they said the reason why they're a scout mission, what they're trying to find out, is they're wondering why love transmits through all dimensions and all time and all universes. Love goes through it all. And they're trying to figure out why. And they started asking me, saying, you've talked about the soul, and we don't know that there is a soul. We know there's a spirit, like a light spirit, and where they're at, saying, but we don't know if there's a soul. But the fact that love permeates all dimensions, time, and universes makes us wonder if there is something more. And what they're saying is, we're good where we're at. We're good. And real quick, it reminds me of the good old, if I got a copy of it here. Sorry, I thought I did. The Tibetan Book of the Dead. All right. And the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they have, they talk about, when you go through, first is the negative part of the panoramic life review that could scare you back into another incarnation or lower vibration. But then you go through the second part, which is the positive. If you're one of those people that put out a bunch of love in your life, it comes back a millionfold too, and it can bliss you out. And the one book that I had described it as like these kings on a beautiful beach where anything they could ever want is brought into them. All right. So at that point, where is the volition to go forward? Okay. And they get stagnation at that point. And I mentioned before on Jessica's show, I talk about a lot about Voyager, the one where the Q wanted to kill himself. And the reason why he wanted to kill himself is because he said when he took him to the continuum, he said, nobody's talking because there's nothing to be said. We've all done it all. The cosmos goes forward and backward. We've done it all. We've been everything in existence. There's nothing left. So that is what I think we face as immortal souls too. Is it how much of it that we know the end of every quantum possibility, and our higher self, our superconscious, has to erase parts of us so we can rediscover the fragments of the creator we are. And I think that is part of it, because our ultimate adversary is boredom. Said it before, how many of y'all played hide and go seek? And you knew where everybody's going to be after the first or second time you played it. But you played at least 5 more times after that. Because why? Didn't want to get bored. I think it might be a similar concept. All right. Anyway, sorry, Dan, you got me going on that one. That was a great question, though. So in that way, I can say this: the super conscious, I heard all these different names: oversoul, divine overself. Your Anti book calls it the thought adjuster. That part of us is inconquerable, and it can't just be controlled. All right. And that I've tested in multiple sessions. I'm always trying to find out. And the day that I find out something different, I'll tell you. Now, I have seen them track people from lifetime to lifetime. And as soon as you incarnate, get back here, even on the way in, they start blasting you. Now, I have seen that with clients. You know what I mean? But as far as the way they incarnate, they can't control that. But when before you incarnate, they start manipulating your parents, because you've already chosen who you're going to incarnate with, and they know. So you know what I mean? That's the way they're tracing in that way. But also concerning that, Dan, I don't think they have the ability to necessarily control that. But when you go to things like, there was that old, I think it was Basis 18, and that's before SSP seemed to get real popular like it is now. But there was that thing, Basis 12, was it? Anyway, there was a couple of people on there. One of them was that guy. What was his name? He kind of looked like the wrestler Matt Riddle. He looked just like Matt Riddle. Anyway, he was talking about these contraptions, and I heard about this before, that project a false light, and that attracts an immortal soul, and then they trap them in one of these bodies. And that very well could be possibly happening. I've not encountered that during my sessions either. But, that's where the whole thought of the false light thing starts coming in, and these soul traps. It comes from that. And, I have not experienced it, not with clients, not myself. That's not to say it doesn't exist, all right? But, Dan, I think it's not the norm, my friend. Anyway, I hope that answered that in a very long-winded, blown-out, Captain Picard speech type of way. Anyway, let's see. Okay. Okay. SSP is a lot to answer for. Yeah, it's a lot of neural programming going on there. It's a shame. Power of intentions can pause time. Very true. Very true. Yeah, and that was feline species. Jessica, you probably said that before I had seen it, or I'm seeing it now. But I mean, I mentioned that before, and I forgot to make that connection. But that's a big one. It's getting to where the work we've done, there's so many pieces of puzzles starting to get plugged in. Sky Glass, hello. Thank you all for being here. Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot, what's up? Thanks for being here. I can't believe that people actually listen to when I talk about movies, people actually listen. And I've been getting asked to recommend movies lately. And I can't believe that anybody actually listened to that. I thought I would get booed out of the Coliseum for that. Somebody asked, I mentioned a couple of movies last live, I think it was, Time After Time was a good one. The Brother from Another Planet is a good one. And the movie Life Force, that a lot of people don't seem to remember. I mentioned that on Jessica's show the other day. Just good older movies. And sometimes it's good to go when there's a little bit of effects going on, but more story, more writing, you know? Anyway, sorry. Don't want to go on to my movie fascination. Super Dave. Super Dave from Dave Dave Letterman. Super Dave. Anyway, okay. All right, I'm gonna go on back down now. Try to get some of the earlier ones. I really appreciate you all being here. It looks like a really nice. This is a nice chat. Atma Ra, welcome. I didn't see you were here. Thank you for being here. Hope all is well. Wow. What, Mark? What's up? How you doing? Wow. SSP does have a lot to answer for, Cabal especially. You know, I'm going to say this again. When it comes to that whole SSP thing, and what we're dealing with is neuroprogramming at a hive mind level, dream engineering, targeted dream incubation, and they're doing that to people. And you've got people now using nonlinear junction technology, nonlinear um, uh, detective technology, that nonlinear junction, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. Anyway, that could be actually trace the frequencies that are non-natural to the human body and what the megahertz are, what the hertz are, and then they can be traced back to the place of origin. And as far as neurocognitive law, which there is none of, it's time we start doing things, writing to your city commissioner saying, hey, I'll declare my cognitive rights and things of that nature, because that's going to all wind up in court. You can actually trace some of those places. So check out Mind Nexus. They're doing those clinics. You can get scanned. You can find out where the frequencies are coming from, and then you can do something about it. You know, it's getting to that point right now, and that's the only thing that's going to stop that. It's getting really, really serious, and I know there's a big hive mind going on. And look, I'm not against SSP. It's not like that at all. But I wanted to know why historically their contact is so much different than what mine and the majority are. You know, I do this part of this wonderful panel, The Experiences of Colors for the John Mack Institute, run by my friend Charlie and Janice Pryor, major contactee. Janice is. When dealing with that, oh, guess what was I about to say? Well, it came up recently in there that we were dealing with oh gosh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was talking about ECC and I got excited and I lost my train of thought of what I was saying. I apologize. It doesn't happen very often. I must mean I'm going too long here and I'm tripped out. Okay, anyway, I'll remember what it was. It was something concerning somebody had said in the group. Oh, what was it? Not concerning time technology, not concerning. Oh, sorry, I lost it. Sorry, it's going to happen every now and again. It can't be perfect. All right, I'm going at 332. Wow, was it connected to the Mind Nexus and the scanning and stuff? Anyway, just cognitive law. You're talking about everything else about to do an oracle read. That's cool. Which ones on the Nordics or on the time commission or on the time technology? You know, time technology is really a trip, and it's very much going advanced in the private sector, not just the conspiracy stuff that we hear. That's cool and everything, the stuff that, you know, like Montauk, the other things, that's real cool. But we've got stuff being done privately, like quantum computer running these time generators and people trying to get patent for time generators and time control technology, things that are actually based on closed time-like curves, which is when I've mentioned before, it's like when you have something like this, if this was something like the Earth, that is, of course, assuming this only happens with somewhat spherical objects, not flat ones, but I'm not going there. Something like the Earth, those that are somewhat spherical create an inertial uh, drag frame around them, okay, which bends the space and time. But so when dealing with that, around that drag frame are closed time-like curves. When you start accessing those, it goes into a whole nother thing with dealing with time control technology. And something else that's going on, I won't talk a lot about it now, but they've got that thing that's called the Psyche asteroid that they're sending something to, the Psychosis satellite to, or something like that. And they're sending it there to mine for iridium. And I don't think that anything that they're sending these satellites to, these asteroids, or anything of the type. I think they're ancient spacecraft. And I think under electron microscopy, it's going to show that. Richard Hoagland has talked about that a lot. So I'm very suspicious to anything they're going to mine, anything they're sending these satellites to out there, they're calling asteroids. So check that out, that Psyche asteroid. It's like all these different metals, but especially iridium, and they won't want to really announce that, how much iridium is on that thing, and that's what they're going there for. But I would suspect that it's another one of these ancient derelict craft out there. Anyway, so sorry, going forward. People say living next to NASA. That must have been interesting. Hello, TETS. Welcome. Curie Ann, welcome. Agreed. Biological plays a huge part in our history. I saw a manta ray UFO had orbs in its tail. I think it was the pilots. That's interesting. I mean, so was it organic or was it? That's interesting. I've never heard of a manta ray UFO. That's or shaped that way. I guess they mean. That's fascinating. The Matrix from Transformers, Sacred Geometry. Something I didn't mention on Jessica's show. We were talking about those Chad Dragonfly drones, and I had showed a picture of what's supposed to be that Roswell engine, or one of those debris. And I showed the picture that was just the little engine itself with the self-activating symbols around the rims. There are two metal pieces in another picture that have self-activating systems on or symbols on it also. And when they get in a certain proximity of that generator, they start levitating. So that was one of those things there that was, I just forgot to say, but that was an example of that self-activating software, self-activating symbols, self-replicating symbols, whatever. Well, you guys are having a great conversation. You don't need me for nothing. Very good. Everybody's so sharp. Trees sing, definitely. Yeah. There's a war going on up there. Yeah. I gotta say, I think that war is more of a thing that's really coming more to the Milky Way and maybe even more earthbound thing, or Earth type of a thing too. And I wonder, like, we've got so many different species out there, and all of them definitely are not benevolent by no means. but you start wondering who really has the upper hand. And is it like I've heard, the Milky Way is primitive? Amongst the billions of galaxies, this is a primitive one. Still based on war and slavery, is not fully overcome here. Just like, Star Wars. Anakahat I don't know if I'm saying that right. Uh, nice to see you. Thank you for coming. I'm up to 344 people. When I get to the end, I'll end it, but I'll try to make sure I get to acknowledge everybody. I'm so blessed anybody even comes. Love Linda. Remember showing this picture. Yeah, interesting deal with Linda. I thought maybe I'll wind up doing some more work with her than when I just met her just before COVID. But we went to lunch and stuff. I didn't actually eat, but we sat there and talked, and that's on interviews on my channel. And I'll be honest with you, I've always respected her. She came to my state to investigate travel or cattle mutilations in 1987. That's the first time I even heard about cattle mutilations. And in fact, when we met, I was talking. I said, "You came." She goes, "Yeah, I did actually." We were talking. She was really, really friendly, and I think she does pretty good reporting. Now, I will be honest. I wondered if one of the reasons maybe I didn't connect with her again is because I talk about black extraterrestrials a lot, and I don't obsess about the tall whites. I was hearing on this last one, she said talking about how they genetically might engineered us. No, definitely not all of us, and that disrespects the whole thing's like what even the Pleiadians, what the Aborigines are saying about the melanin dominant Pleiadians. That stuff has to be brought to light in these communities. People said, "Oh, we should never talk about race when it comes to contact and extraterrestrial." Are you kidding me? This place down here is messed up. We're not operating unified yet. We're getting better than when like my father's day was, which is a horrible time to be alive racially in the 40s, 50s. Especially before the civil rights and all that. Is a real trip, and I see so many people are still alive from that generation are so wounded by it, even worse than us now. Even what my brothers, who were one of them 20 years older than me almost, what he experienced racially compared to me is different. You know what I mean? So we're going forward, but we're still not to Gene Roddenberry's Enterprise bridge yet. We got a little bit of everybody on there. We're still not quite there yet. All right. So we still got to strive to that, to be a type 1 civilization. Anyway, but that's one thing about Linda that is just, maybe a bit of a turnoff. I have a friend, a colleague, his name is Zach Jefferson. Real cool brother. Him and his wife, Angelina, very, very genius people. And Zach is sharp. And Zach had contacted Linda and asked, how come you never talk about any melanin dominant extraterrestrials? And she responded saying that she never hears about any. And, that's kind of what Ray had told me too. Ray had said in all the surveys and everything, they got very little about any melanin dominant black extraterrestrials, nothing almost. And a part of me thinks that it's somewhat fixed. And another part thinks it's just definitely sequestered. Because as somebody that has enough of a platform now, I've talked to hundreds of contactees and several that have encountered melanin dominant extraterrestrials. It's not as rare as we think. It's just kind of pushed under the rug. Just like those of us that have actually been on board craft. So not like Ray a lot, but he would say, "Oh, that's a very low part of y'all, or statistically amount of y'all that have been on board craft, opposed to those that have had astral and conscious experience." And I didn't agree. I don't think I'm that special. I've been saying since the beginning, I think 70% of our population up are contactees. I think a lot of people, a lot more than just me, have been on ship. Okay. And Preston Dennett recently had joined one of his groups, and he's been talking about onboard contact experiences and how they are somewhat common. So that's just, things, but we're learning more as stuff evolves. You know what I mean? So anyway, not putting either nobody down, but I'm just saying that I think we don't have the full picture a lot. But the fact that, the melanin dominant extraterrestrial thing is not acknowledged at all, or the beings are triangulum, or any of that stuff is important, and it needs to start being acknowledged with the others so that other people that are contactees come forward. You know what I mean? And like I said, some things I thought get just shot. I thought maybe as far as, maybe Barney, that the Greys didn't abduct melanin dominant people as much. because they're from our future and they're more connected to melanin recessive. That's not true. Credo Mutua got jacked, and he was talking about all sorts of people that are getting abducted by them. So I was wrong on that, wrong supposition. But hey, you got to learn. You know what I mean? It's all about learning, right? Anyway, sorry, I'll go on down. Sorry. And this was cool because I think it just brings up the quote of time travelers and historians slash Integral Commission, or Temporal Integrity Commission, time cops. What are the different levels of this in the different civilizations, in the different alliances? I think it's very valid information, valid food for thought. Joyce Hartman, thank you. Wow, great chat, everybody. M83, the band, lots to there. You know, there's also M83, or is that M33? So that's M33, the colliding super black holes. And you know, they're producing sound too. They produce sound as they're colliding. Quite interesting. Oh, Allison, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. See, brought up some Linda Moulton Howe. I said this last live I did. Thanks to Allison, I can prove that I actually even met that woman. And I had said that. I said, man, if I keep it real, and if I don't BS and start tripping or whatever, one day I'll get to meet Linda Moulton Howe. And it happened when I came back from Australia. Yeah, and I said between her and Mary Rodwell, you took pictures of that. Just an interesting day. I was somewhat blown away that whole day. You know what I mean? And then that was because I interacted with some of the people from that panel I was on. There was only like 7 of us. And, you know, Richard Dolan kept coming up to me afterwards. He said, man, I really appreciate what you're saying. He said, I'd heard about you before, but I never heard you speak. And he was so complimentary. And then we, at the dinner table and stuff, I sat with him and Daryl Anka and that other gentleman over there. But I can't remember his name now. But his wife and Cameron, my husband really, really respects you. I was like, hey, that's really nice. You know what I mean? It's very, very cool. And then I had good interactions with Nick Pope. You know, Nick Pope was pulling the Benny Hill jokes on me. Man, I heard I'd heard about Benny Hill in 35 years. Yeah, he was killing me. He's also a big-time Doctor Who Tom Baker fan. So we wound up sitting at breakfast for 30 minutes talking about Tom Baker's Doctor Who. Just him and I. He caught me an hour before anybody was even up there. It was just him and I. It's pretty cool. And I met him through Alexis Brooks. So, you know, stuff like that's pretty cool to meet some of these people. It's kind of neat, you know, see if they feel like contactees or if they feel like just researchers or whatnot. Oh, sorry. Wow. Great conversation. I've heard of owl people experimenting, observing children in programs too. You know, that's interesting, Dan. Yeah, you know, there's that gentleman, gosh, what's his name? He wrote the book about the owls and how grays often use owls for screen memories. I have a couple of friends that saw an owl like that, and I think they might have had a contact experience. A real large owl, like half the size of a person. And also, they use deer as well. They'll use deer. I had for a couple of my contact experiences driving down this country road, the deers were jumping out in front to where it was really kind of a trip. And it was a little too much eye shine. It almost looked more like eye glow than eye shine. Anyway, so don't worry, everybody. I'm almost done. I'm almost there. Owls are used for screen memories. There you carry in. Okay, what's the gentleman's name that writes the owl books? Here, hold on, I'll look it up right now. I'll tell you his name. Somebody already knows in here without me, but I've got it because I've got his book here. The Stories from the Messengers, Mike Selland, Cleland. Stories from the Messengers. He talks all about the owls and how they're used for screen memories by the Greys. He'd be somebody interesting to have on your show sometime, Jessica. I know he does interviews, if you're still here with me. Cryptoville, what's up? Yeah. Boy, you guys are having a great chat. I can't even keep up. Could love be a form of quantum entanglement? Who said that? Where'd that go? Hold on, where'd that go? Dan, it was Dan. Okay. Dan, definitely. Quantum entanglement showing that everything is connected no matter distance. Love would definitely do that, even more than gravity or anything else. And in that way, also, the quantum entanglement is how we're still connected to the Akashic records, aka the Makos, the black holes. So I'd agree with that definitely. Wow. Heart energy is quantum. Joy here and now. Wow. St. Phoenix. Barry, has Alex remained in contact with you, but did it communicate with you only that one time? No, only those two times. Honestly, it was those two times, and I, always wondered why some of these beings step forwards and others step backwards. And I've become vastly aware that something else had happened to me that I've kind of just forgot about. Another one of those things that happens when you're younger. You know what I mean? Something at this. I used to go play and mess around with this rock quarry when I was a kid. It had been abandoned, and I asked my older brother. I said, he's 18 years older than me, and I said, when did that place become abandoned? He said, man, even when I was a kid, that place was always abandoned. But I had some type of an experience there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it somehow involved that individual. And it seemed like a lot of these beings would step forward when I was younger, then they step back and others come forward. I couldn't understand it, so I started getting a bit older, and it's still kind of weird. So I hope that answers that. But I feel that probably he's not all that far away, if that makes any sense. Basis Miles Johnson. That guy, it was called Basis 12, I think. And it was all about a lot of mind programming and stuff that people that had been in these programs, but it was before, like even before I'd heard about like James Rink and people like that. It seemed like it was the first thing. I don't know if it was Miles Johnson, but there was another guy on there that was talking. The guy that looked like Matt Riddle. What was his name? Oh, he was good. There was a couple other people on there too, but he was the best one, I thought. And I'm sorry, somebody knows what I'm talking about. That cat looked like the wrestler Matt Riddle. Anyway, sorry. K Wright Car 402. Okay. Do you think the moon is a machine that traps souls and pull them back? It's so fascinating because, when I was younger, the first time I started hearing, it was either Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh or Paramahansa Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, one of them talking about the moon and saying that the moon was when we dream at night, we go to the moon, and when we incarnate, we come through the far side of the moon through this thing they were calling the dream catcher. And then years later, I started kind of taking that and transforming that into Richard Hoagland's technology or Richard Hoagland's work. And even worse, when I had experience that I call the acid rain experience, this insectoid being is telling me when I'm asking where it's from to focus on first the third and fourth planets outside of Pluto, that they're jumping off bases for this solar system because a lot of beings have problem with the density and the physicality of this solar system. Okay, and when I'd given Jessica that brown those dwarf planets as blind targets, she saw like bases on there, and she kept saying something about a ticking time bomb. They're talking about Earth. They're watching Earth. You know what I mean? The way things are going down here. So, but even more interesting is she picked up this energy field. This, like, I would call it more or less a scalar field. But when we come in, and this is what the insectoid told me, when we come in, our, like the orgone energy or prana field gets an electrical shock that helps aid us in loss of life memories, soul life memories when we incarnate here. Okay, so she's seeing that. She saw that energy of field as well, as that field of energy as well. And I think it's also how they tag us when we incarnate. If you've got that Artron energy on you, that star type energy on you, they track it. Anyway, so in that way, I think that's what the moon does. And it's fascinating because when I had that deal with Corey Good, he had kept saying that he'd been to the moon and that it's a computer in the middle in these tunnels that go down to this massive biocomputer that takes recordings of Earth at all times. And when doing that video with John Vivinco and that punk cat, anyway, with John Vivinco, he had we talked about the moon on that video. It's in interviews on this channel, but he had talked about that he had looked at the moon and the beings could see him and stuff, and it was quite similar to what Corey was saying as far as it being a computer in that way. He was quite almost correct. And then he said that he got the proverbial knock on the door and told not to look at the moon anymore, like a real one. Somebody came to see him, he said, and see his team told him don't do it anymore. And he looked kind of, honestly, he looked a little bit intimidated when he was telling me that, to be quite honest with you. So I don't think it was a BS song. I read micro expressions and all that, and look pretty real. Okay, Allison, what do you think about 3i Atlas and what NASA's saying about it? Jessica's show, just one of the last ones, we did 2 over at Atlas 3i. I think what caught my attention, Allison, is that what they're saying right now, about at the time it went around the sun back there, is that it seemed to have almost broken up, but it's got these pieces of debris that it's carrying with it now. And almost like it's a convoy of comets. But of course, conspiracy, it's probes, it's a Bracewell probe. We don't have any facts of that yet, that they're under intelligent control. But when it comes around from the other side of the sun, are that thing still going to be with it? Is it not? That'll be fascinating. And you've got so many amateur astronomers waiting to see this thing. They're not going to be able to hide it if it's got some sort of artificial control with it. Something else about it is that it seems to not be having any evaporation by either water or any other fluids, which they say is also very interesting, So things like that, I think, make this noteworthy of what it could be, and also how much of our intention on it and conscious focusing on it is changing it and changing the reality of it. Now, when Jessica had remote viewed it, blind target I gave her, she kept, hate to say it because other people don't agree, but she kept getting all this reptilian stuff. And a lot of people are saying, it's come here to upgrading consciousness. And something about it, Allison, is that when it's at the closest perigee to Mars, it's going to be invisible to us. So if it does something on there by Mars, we're not going to be able to see it. I know they released some satellites and stuff, but we'll see how that goes. But ultimately, what a perfect path if you're trying to hide something from an almost type 1 civilization. So in that way, all I can say is time will tell, and I think it's definitely worthy of watching. But I'm more interested right now in that asteroid Psyche, or Psychosis, whatever we're calling it. But anyway, it's check that one out, and the craft that they just sent to it. But that, I think, is not what it appears to be, just like asteroid Bennu, that they sent OSIRIS-REx-T satellite to collect samples. That's not what it appears to be either. So it's things like that we need to be really cognizant of, that's right here near Earth objects. You know what I mean? So anyway, but that's going to think about that. And yeah, that's the interesting one, Allison. I think you'd like that remote viewing show. It's on, go to the playlist, remote viewing shows of Jessica Jones, and just scroll through there. You'll see it. But it's one on 3i. We did a couple one on 3i Atlas, and it's very interesting, as well as the one on Mars, kind of maybe tying that together to a degree. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. I try, man. I haven't seen all that many movies, some of them, but the cheesy ones I tend to like. They're saying in the social media there's a second moon. That's been out for a while. It's called Oh gosh, can't remember of it now, the name of it now, but it's another one. It almost sounds like water, H2O or something like that. But that's another one that they say will be only around for a while. But you've got these other near Earth objects, such as VG 1991. Look that one up. SG 344. Look that one up. Those are near Earth objects that are highly bizarre, but no one talks about them. There's another one. I can think of it now. It's not the Black Knight. There's another near Earth object also. And the one you're mentioning there that they only just recently saw, I think it's H2. It almost sounds like it's water as far as the designation of it. Is it true you can open and close dimensional portals with your laugh? It's funny. Let's see. Skull to mind technology. That's real. Yeah, V2K. Definitely. Havana syndrome, all those things. And they're using on that what's called the audio spotlight, the micro audio spotlight. That's what a lot of that technology is based on, But I think what they're even going further now than just that is the dream engineering. They're really all over that one right now, really, which is changing people's dreams into memories and those memories into reality. That's really a big one right now. And then putting them in the hive mind. Thus, you have all these people that are experiencing the same thing. Oh, I had that dream too. I did that too. Yeah. Does anybody know if David Adair's work has been implemented yet? No, I don't. But not long after I came forward, he was one of the first people that I had heard actually mentioning organic craft, symbiotic craft like I had. But he experiences different, but still the similarities is interesting. When dealing with that last Earth Files of Linda Moulton Howe, she started promoting at the end of that because this guy, Jared, the remote viewer, said that he was really just trying to get information about Alcubierre warp drive and trying to get the schematics and the calculations for it from these beings and from spirit, from all that. When he started going through all these getting all this other information and stuff, and then I was really shocked to hear Linda promoting APEC, APEC, which is those cats that are really working scientifically on the new hyperdimensional, hyperspace and warp physics. They're trying to really bring warp physics and create these engines and create this technology. That's APEC, and she promoted them. And I've seen those guys at a conference before, a couple of them, and they're walking around trying to talk to people about hyperspace and about different warp physics and things like that, and nobody's listening to them. Kind of just blowing them off. You know what I mean? So that shows you right there, people want more fantasy than science. We got to get back to the science, give some of the stuff to make this technology transparent to the public. I'm not saying it doesn't already exist, but it needs to be transparent. That anti-gravity technology, the things that there's patented so you can actually look up, that stuff that Ralph Ring made, Otis Carr made, different warp physics. What's that other? Warp Physics Dynamics, that company? Stuff like that to be looked up. Anyway. Don't worry, we're almost done, everybody. Right there with you. Asteroid Psych. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Right on. Right on. Yeah, quite interesting. All the metals. I don't think what it appears to be. Original War of the Worlds manta ray shaped ships. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Thank you. Who said that? Oh, Carrie Ann. Thank you. Yeah, that's true. They were. That was an awesome. I always thought that was great, man. Those things were completely impervious to everything, and then they got jacked by the bacteria. But in the 90s, like early 90s, just before X-Files started showing, they had a War of the Worlds TV series. And supposedly a couple of those aliens that survived, they're wearing these gas masks and stuff. They're trying to do everything. That series based around they had survived and escaped. They were like some sort of a hidden compound. But the main thing was they were trying to resurrect just one of those craft. They were saying if we could get one of them functional again, we'll take over the planet. Yeah, it was a fascinating. It didn't do very good, but it wasn't a bad show. You know, remember psychic ability, stand up for yourselves. Definitely. That's cool. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you came. Who was it that said that? Sorry, I said Linda Moulton Hell. Let her hear. Dan was Dan. Okay, thank you, Dan. Wow, I guess I'm still way back there, man. Is blue skin melanin dominant, or is that silver in the blood? I've heard of silver, but also, according to the Uranta, they talk about the blue skin people quite a bit that lived here once. If you start looking at some things like the doggone it talked about too, that some of the not the Nomo, but there were the blue beings that came here, and when the firmament fell, they got trapped and they turned darker, along with more melanated people of this planet after a few generations. So that's um, people have craft flying over their house. The violet indigo rays of the rainbow incarnate as melanin people of Earth, so I was told. The way I've learned that is that the soul groups conform to what we call the color spectrum, Roy G. Biv: red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet. And it actually, it's like your reds and your oranges, or let's say, you don't want to say younger souls, but maybe the less experienced, and as to where you have the violet are your most experienced, and how a lot of times we all go through all the soul groups and then choose the one that we vibrate with the most. And the one that really came out with me was that I was showing you before, those throne beings that I interacted with that had the oh gosh goodness, I can't believe that worked out like that. Oh, that's impossible. um the throne beings that I interacted with, and how there are three different colors of them, but they have these crystals in their chests. They like look like quasi crystals to me with real weird configurations, and I most kind of correlated them with some of the uh, Wagina from Australia, and some of the pictures that Mary Rodwell had that some of the contactee kids had painted of the Wagina. Some of them had crystals in the middle of them like that. But when you see these lights that seem to be going into space, okay, I believe those they represent soul groups. This is the being that stepped forward towards me. One of the few beings that gave me a name. They gave me the name, and I've said it before. It was Burn Daddy. I can remember it because it reminds me of the lady, this Bernadette Status from Good Times. I used to have a crush on some Thelma. Thelma. Yeah, so I remember that name because of that, and that's kind of reminded me of. But anyway, I think it stepped forward because I'm Blue Soul Group. A lot of you people that vibrate with me and resonate with me are Blue Soul Group. It is what it is. So that's my understanding of the soul groups there, if that helps a little. Divine Connections with Susan. What's happening, my friend? Thank you for coming. What's your deal on 3A Atlas? Xenaria Cosmic Light Studio. Just hit that one. So hopefully you heard that, the 3I Atlas thing. Do you think there's validity in the Thanabic prophecy? Interesting question. Yeah, that story is so popular just based on them being melanin dominant beings. But when it comes to the Thanabic prophecy, the thing I found the most interesting is how he describes those different beings, and how there's some of them that are androgynous. and how when he was on the ship, he couldn't tell the difference. That he thought that it was a race of all females. And he said that, do you have any men in your society? And they told him there are no females here. And he started noticing that they're androgynous to a way. And that's the way, and actually Wonder Woman and them were supposed to have been. And the way the Andromedan females with the dreadlocks are described too, being an androgynous type of species. Or I guess you saw hermaphrodites. I guess you call them that too, to a degree. But fascinating. So in that way, I think it's interesting. And the fact that he talked a lot about the constellation of Centaurus in that book. So I think those are things that are places to kind of pick up and maybe take. Could some of it be embellished? Perhaps. Like, I don't believe you can be off planet that long, personally, but my opinion only, okay? But it's a good read. And his description of the craft is interesting, too. Wow. Joanna, New Zealand, thank you. Thanks for being here. Jessica with the Atlas update. Oh, so I'm not. Sorry, I gotta have somebody grab me these tags, these X39 tags. Sorry, okay. Those stem patches are interesting. Anyway, I think it's the beginning of something that's going to go much further science-wise. Anyway, I first heard of organic craft, living ships from far sky. Yeah, what was that one called? Moa? Was it Moa? Mua? Can't remember now. But technically, Dan, the TARDIS is alive too. The TARDIS is organic craft as well, and they kind of alluded to that in the older series, like even with like Tom Baker and Peter Davidson. They kind of hit it, especially I think when they were talking about pulling out the middle of it. But anyway, yeah, that was another one that the TARDIS is actually organic and aware, and Star Trek dealt with that a lot. My favorite is probably Tin Man. I thought that was a good one. Weren't the Naga blue? Yeah, there were blue ones. There were different color Nagas. Praveen Mohag goes into that a little bit. In fact, he showed a few Nagas on some of those ancient temples I didn't even know about. Look different than the ones I was familiar with. So. Wow. I was born with violet eyes. People came over and seen Weird Baby. I know exactly who you are now. I thought that was you. How you doing? Hey, violet eyes. I know exactly who you are. Yeah, you have very striking eyes. It's a trip. Yeah. In fact, you remind me of that actress. Oh gosh, what's her name? In fact, she was on that movie They with Roddy McDowell and not Roddy McDowell. Yeah, Roddy Piper. The movie with the glasses and stuff. She's a lady she has eyes kind of similar to yours. Kate something, I think, is her name. But yeah, anyway, that's very cool. Glad you're here too. Thank you for coming. Crystal, get the color from the type of mineral. Ooh, true. I don't need to put my pictures in anything, man. I've got it online. Okay, I'm to the end of it. Thank you all for being here. I got, a couple of things I'd like to probably talk about. This one here went longer than I thought, but it was important, I think, just to piece some of the things together as possibilities. because I think a lot of us have maybe had experiences with some of these temporal integrity commission people and not been aware of it, because it doesn't it's not just like what you hear in SSP. It's not like other people's testimonies. It's your testimony. It's your perception, what you've had. We've got tons of different beings, different civilizations, different galaxies for that fact that we don't even hear about. So it's all about broadening our perspective. I thank you all for being here. Keep commenting. I'll probably do something soon again. I'm even thinking about doing something over that new asteroid and maybe over some of the ones that they're investigating and seeing what we can find out under the microscopy. Microscopy. Oh, Lord, my voice. Anyway, it'll be interesting to find some of that stuff out. Thank you all for being here. Much love and much energy to you all. Really appreciate you coming, and I will see you again. Peace.